than the actual employment process. It's like you're dehumanized enough when you just put in an application someplace, and maybe you'll get and you're much more likely to get a phone call if you actually put an application somewhere. But yeah, as far as the online dating thing, I think that goes down a similar route. Welcome, BurnEye. Sorry, yeah, you got
good day.
Yeah. You got right in the meat of it.
Right into the meat of the sheet, right? I called Red-eye. I didn't realize it was Pink Eye, but
it's Pink Eye, bro.
That's how it goes, right?
Exactly. But this is all connecting back into where we are now and the detriment of our soul and our spiritual lives. It's how far have we come from nature, quote unquote? How far have we come from integrating nature into our lives? Maybe if we were much better at integrating nature, we wouldn't have both all these worldly problems, but also these spiritual problems as well, because honestly, we probably don't need cars. They just developed. If you design cities correctly, having a city center, then everything developing out of there, you have a very
endorsing 15-minute cities.
Right, I was just about to say, are you encouraging?
Actually, American Time Machine is all about the 15-second cities. Like, the idea is that you want to be able to sit in a place and have everything instantaneously come to you. Now, one thing I would say, though, before he's allowed to answer, because I don't want him to be burned at the stake, is what's the alternative? Because if you really believe that the future is full chaos, then it's poop. He's not wrong. Like, you're talking about a cholera epidemic, but if you're saying that the alternative is controlled future, yeah, okay, that doesn't sound as bad when you call it controlled future, unless you say controlled by the people who we know are doing the thing, right? And why are they doing it instead of you and I and Kurt and Gunwoo? Couldn't we be? Look at you with that 8-ball. Don't look at me like that.
Are you going to ask the 8-ball?
Right. Okay. So here's the question. God. Is Xirtus the Antichrist in his current background drop?
I'm real curious too what it says.
Oh, goodness gracious. Outlook not good.
This is supposed to be the fire burning down the temple. There's like a conspiracy video we just made a second ago, right? Where we're talking about Brigham Young. And like, he supposedly, like, after they walked away, they burned down the temple. And it might have been him. You know what I mean? So that's where that's a reference to. But
great episode, by the way.
Thank you. I do think, though, that the 15-minute city is inevitable. Does anyone disagree? Like, if we don't continue to move forward towards Venus Project, Zeitgeist, Satanism, then, it's manure.
Well, people can't even go to 7-Eleven, like walk to 7-Eleven anymore. They have to have it delivered by Uber Eats. I think you're right onto something there with those 15-minute cities being inevitable.
Some of my favorite quotes are haikus from Gunwoo. I remember one thing he said the other day. It was so prophetic. It was I was like, these 45-year-olds that have to drive 2 hours to deliver a $7.
Oh no, yeah. Yeah, I wrote that all of a sudden.
Boba tea.
Yeah. The fact that somebody out, the middle-aged person, is driving 40 minutes to deliver me bubble tea for $7. It just, I don't know.
Yeah,
that kind of hit me.
Yeah, it's like an Emerson poem. So yeah, society's going to continue to go. Okay, Kurt, you go. I've apologized. I'm an apologist.
No, we're conversing. This is what it's all about. Like we drive around 4,000 to 5,000 pound vehicles. 20 minutes to give you a cheeseburger. It doesn't seem like something that is efficient by any measure whatsoever. Well, even the fact that we drive, like I drive 30 miles to my job, that's like a lot of miles, and that I know even that is not sustainable, and I think I go about it in a pretty efficient way comparatively, but it is what it is. The world we built is kind of insane if you just take a step back. Like, imagine if even 400 years ago, if a lot of people were just riding their horses around, like, all right, here's your cheeseburger, giddy up, and they just trotted away. I think that's kind of comical to think about. But it doesn't I think that's a good way, I don't know, to visualize like this doesn't seem like it's rational. You know, maybe you should be delivering something like important. Food is important, but if you deliver someone food, shouldn't you be like delivering a lot of it, like groceries? I don't know.
McDonald's doesn't need to be delivered to your home.
It
No.
depends. It depends on what you were trying to do, though. The Wells Fargo wagon's important, and the idea of like the Hawaiian Atlantic, the Hawaiian Pacific exchange was that they basically took over Hawaii so they could constantly have trade going back and forth. China right now, Amazon right now, like trying to have as many packages back and forth so they can monopolize having control of the system of the moving, the moving of goods and resources. It's like the replacement of the forum, because the forum was the place that we gathered, the watering hole. And so instead you have the circuit now, and the circuit is like an old West idea, but it's really a sheriff idea. The sheriffs brought this from the Middle Age. Yeah, this is post-Rome. It's post-Romanism, because after you lose the Roman roads, because the Roman roads have then tariffs from highway robbers, like the robber barons are now collecting tariffs to protect their parts of the roads. So you have isolated areas, and the only way to keep that going is to constantly be having goods and exchanges of services to have economy. So the running of the house, and then that household becomes, you know, one kingdom to another kingdom, or they marry their kids, right? So this is the other thing. Is it better to put someone in jail for their crimes for 20 years or 5? Or does it make more sense to make them drive 2 hours commuting to work every day for 20 years? You know, it's actually kind of a naraka. We've built this suffering for people that deserve it. I don't know if everyone does. I don't think we all do, and I'm glad I don't do it. But there's a lot of people that love life the way it is. They hate other things. They're against growth. They like really want to be able to just use the sacrifice of other people's effort or of God's effort or something so that they can just coast. You know what I mean? And part of that is that they just need to be in a car for 2 hours suffering back and forth. I don't know. Maybe that's Dharma. Is that cold? Am I cold? Am I the Antichrist?
I was going to add on.
I wouldn't be restreaming this or here if I thought so.
What I was going to add on to that was so you know, you're talking about the absurdity of how we live life currently, that are using a Ford F-150 to deliver like a hamburger or something. but this I guess the whole habitus or the business model of this country is all built around the maxima of convenience, that on layered with the freedom to do whatever you want. To embrace that absurdity, as Andreas mentioned, some people love the way life is currently, and they're all about it. It's like the personification of Senator Armstrong. I don't know if you get that reference. But
the personification of what?
Senator Armstrong.
No. Yeah, that's the video game guy.
Yeah.
Senator. Somehow I ended up watching his entire like character arc on a video game I never played, but
pretty much like there's a lot of people, especially in the South where I live, that have fully embraced this persona unironically.
Great satire.
And then they with no sense of self-awareness at all. Complete Americanism.
I like the look of it already. I never seen it.
So like the dilemma of
muscular Mormon missionary is what that outfit was right there. Look at that.
But the dilemma of that is like whether or not should we allow.
Oh yeah, that's Mormon like yearly calendar sales.
Yeah, he really did it there. It's like Breaking Bad, but it's like.
The part of the plot is that he like voluntarily mutated himself. Gave himself superhuman powers, so he's almost quite literally like a lizard person in office.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, like mecha lizard person. I don't know. I forget the rest of it, but like, he has the good politician face.
Did you know that Mormons believe in Bigfoot sometimes? Okay, so this came up because I did this thing where I'm talking to a bunch of people, and they were. I know this is kind of a tangent, and it's a distraction from poop, but. A bunch of people were like, "Oh, Mormonism's racist," which is not really true. Like originally, it was like an abolitionist movement, and they wanted blacks to be priests, and they were originally. And then so at very least it started that way. But like and then it goes into the Brigham Young thing when he's dead, etc. But they keep going on about like, oh, the mark of Cain, right? The mark of Cain is this idea they think that Cain is black. I think is basically how far that goes. Some people like to say it's Ham, some people like to say it's Cain, but it was like the mark of Cain. The mark of Cain, according to Mormons, isn't black people. It's Bigfoot. I didn't know this. Apparently it's Bigfoot. I mean, you can actually find the story. Was it Bigfoot?
Mormon. That makes more sense. Mormons aren't racist, and it's freaking Sasquatch, man. That is Cain.
It actually, it technically
That's
Bigfoot.
Why Cain wears a mask in WWF. He's a Sasquatch.
I showed this to another Mormon. They're like, "Nuh-uh," and I'm like, "Yeah, no." And they're like, "Who?" I'm like, "Joseph Fielding Smith's brother, their prophet's brother." They're like, "What?" Yeah, but it's a race. I think Bigfoot would be like Chewbacca. I mean, like Harry marries Chewbacca. That's the other thing that's interesting about that, right? If Chewbacca is if Mother's Harry, I don't know.
I feel like this is a red herring. There has to be some. I don't know.
No. So Joseph Fielding Smith said that a man came through the door. Joseph Fielding Smith's brother. A man came through the door. He was tall enough to have to stoop to enter. His eyes were very protruding and rather wild looking. His fingernails were thick and long. He presented a rather unkempt appearance and wore no clothing at all. It's like the Blair Witch Project.
Right, but so like a 6'5" homeless man.
No. Let me keep going. There suddenly appeared in Smith's right hand a light which had the size and appearance of a dagger. A voice said, "This is your priest." Wait, is this the one? No, this isn't the one. No, is this it? Bigfoot. Come on, man. Harry. Basically, it's a hairy, imposing creature that he talks to and says
he wore no clothing, was covered in hair. So what? A 6-foot Irish guy?
He's supposed to walk the earth forever. Cain has to walk here it is. Who's cursed to roam, according to Joseph Fielding Smith's brother, Cain, whose curse is to roam and walk the earth, seeking whom he may destroy. So he has an immortal, furry man that has to walk the earth forever. That was their deal.
So Bigfoot is naturally violent.
Maybe he was originally, but don't you think that you change at that point after a while?
Destroy who he may.
I don't know. And you see the hair.
Bigfoot this summer, I was petrified for my life and felt like I was about to get eaten. Well, I mean, yelling in the background, I was there and we were petrified.
I mean, it's just the fact that they have all these pictures of Harry Mary, and so the mother of Christ looks kind of like Bigfoot. It seems like there's something to that. I gotta wonder. I don't know.
To draw a connection between Mary and Bigfoot is a bit of a stretch. More so, I'm like,
fine.
This is more of a real dumb situation. The women
Harry Mary, come on.
Yeah, there's pictures of her where her face is furry too, but I don't know. Most of these are for show.
I think someone like Byung-Chul Han would make an advocation for believing in the fantastical, even if you know it's terrible. Well, just think about what our alternative now is. Like now we just we live in a society where everything's just apathetic. Everybody is, you can't really, we all just have this hyper permeated brain space where you can't even like stimulate people because it's like that feeling if you jack off 5 times in a day. That's what our brains are like. That's what's happening to our brains, like with our constant stimulation. So instead of just like having that prerequisite of just like, okay, here's the science of everything, and here's how it's boring and we can understand it, and here's why you'll live 80 years then die. Maybe you just need to believe in something else. So I don't know. I'm not okay. Andreas will definitely stand Mormonism. I'm a little bit indifferent, but I think one thing I've noticed, I haven't had any Mormon people come in on tours because I do tours for a living. But
you just haven't noticed yet. You can't tell.
I might have not noticed. All right, so I've had a lot of Jewish families.
Yeah.
I had a lot of Jewish families.
You can tell. Sorry.
I had a lot of Jewish families. A lot of Amish families, Amish families as well.
They stand out as well. Yes.
And so I will say the seemingly the most underutilized force that Americans have just disregarded. And apparently, at one time, we were a Christian nation, and we've forgotten the most sacred commandments.
Really? Who said that? Who told you that? The Amish?
No, they didn't tell me this. What I'm saying is,
Who told you we were a Christian nation?
No, at one point, yes.
Oh, you're saying you're asserting that as an idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
interesting. I just want you to know that's not true at all, and that's like.
I mean, you know,
yeah.
America is fundamentally
only the United Kingdom is officially a Christian nation.
Yeah,
right?
America is fundamentally like a satanic secular state that separated church from state, so that the Freemasons could introduce all sorts of heresies, which I'm saying is a good thing.
Thank you, Freemasons, but
yeah,
that's a good thing to you.
Well, all right. I just remember. I'll always remember being in Boy Scouts and meeting this kid who was a pagan, and he told me like, "I'm not part of Corpus Christi. I'm a pagan. My family are pagans, and we all practice paganism, like which is not even a religion exactly. It's like Wicca and all these other things like Wotanism and Odinism, etc." Right. And he's just like, and my family fought in every single war in America since the beginning to fight for our freedoms, and that's why we love America, because America lets us be witches. And I was just like, dang. So I don't know.
When you got the Salem witch trials.
Well, that's only in part of the United States.
Yeah,
but sorry, Chris.
It probably said that Freemasonry and Protestantism probably do have some overlaps, and you know they probably are not necessarily mutually exclusive. But anyway, so Jesus said, "The greatest commandment is to love the Lord. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." And Kierkegaard, sorry, I'm not trying to name drop, but my boy Kierkegaard, I'm in love with him. You know, he said he wrote a whole book, Works of Love. I got started on that one. And his greatest theme in that one are like, okay, this is a commandment. You're not loving people if it's convenient. You shall love people, and you shall love yourself in a godly way, and invite other people into that sort of godly love that you have for other self and other people. And that's how you actually love the divine. So I think that is actually a profound thing. And I think every denomination is a little bit heretical because they stray from that central commandment that's supposed to be the greatest commandment ever. Anytime you start bitching about gays and homosexuality, you're forgoing that commandment. Like who fucking gives a shit if it's you know, rape is being involved, whatever, like
right, something different, but whatever people do in their own bedroom, it's their own business, sort of thing. Just keep it there.
Yeah, I think we've had enough lessons about homosexuality with a much larger problems on the table. Where I was going with that is that a lot of these families, a lot of these tight-knit families that still have parts of religion that are acting as a binding force between them and their families, you can tell there's something a little bit special going on. And here's how I describe it. Sometimes I'll do my tours, and admittedly, I won't be able to do the sciencey part of my tours. Like, oh, here's the cave. You know, here they say it's millions of years old. Whatever. I won't be able to do that because they tell basically the administrators or the parents. They're like, hey, don't do that. You know, and that's fine. Whatever. We're a commercial tour.
Don't talk about dinosaurs tonight. Yeah,
exactly. But so sometimes on these tours, I'll hear them sing. And sometimes it's actually they'll start singing on the tours because it's a cave. They want to hear the walls. So I'll hear 20 people. In the case of today, it was 20 adolescent Jewish girls. They decided they wanted to sing as what is it, Zemafit or whatever their traditional songs are called. I think there's a Z in there somewhere. But they were actually incredibly good at it, and it was incredibly beautiful. So imagine rounding up 20 people anywhere else in society and bringing them into a cave or a setting and saying, hey, sing like a choir, and I want it to sound beautiful. What are the chances of that actually happening? We are losing anything that actually binds us together and creates something collectively beautiful. And family, actually, we're missing familial belonging, and we've constructed a system that is actually blocking our ability to create those systems, to create those family structures that allow for that unity. And one thing that Han argues that rituals actually have the fundamental effect of slowing down time, like actually, like physically transforming time and distorting our collective realities. When we start to lose those rituals, we actually have the acceleration of time, or at least the psychological acceleration of time. So one of the main things I think I've learned from having a lot of these religious groups come through and being exposed as a semi-secular person, but also, at this point I'm pretty Buddhist. I believe in the spiritual world, is that we definitely have thrown out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to secularizing the general public and replacing it with the worship of state and worship of work. It's not fucking working. We know it's not fucking working, and we're like, what the hell is the alternative? And well, we know there's an alternative, and we think it's too cringe. We think believing in God is too cringe, bro. Why don't you be base and just worship the science, bro? It's yeah.
You gotta be Jesuit enough to worship the same thing. It's like this is when you start thinking that atheism and theism are different things, you don't know enough about either of the things. That's like what I'm starting to find about both people. And it's really like interesting because they're really so similar that they do the same thing. Where they're like, nope, that's it. I get it. It's just crazy. It's amazing because like it's such a anti-Socrates
horseshoe, yeah.
paradox. Yeah. Well, just like Socrates says that I know nothing, right? That's the paradox, to know that I finally know something as I know nothing. It's more than Descartes. It's like hyper meta Descartes. But instead, they're thinking, well, I know everything I need to know, which is just like, blah. It leaves a sour taste in your mouth, this idea. Do you know what heresy means? Heresy means school of thought. Everyone keeps using that word wrong. I noticed it. I was like, what does that mean again? So I heard the word heresy. Admit I had ideas about its definition as wrong as the other members of this group. That's how I like to neurolinguistically program there. From Latin, heresis, school of thought, philosophical sect, derived from the Greek hereses, a taking or choosing for oneself, a choice, a means of taking, a deliberate plan, purpose, philosophical sect, school, from the heresetai, taking C's middle voice of harain, to choose. By the 16th century, this word had started to mean different things, including, I think, sodomy. But at the very beginning, Augustine, they're like, well, but look, Augustine says this is a heresy. It's like, yeah. He's talking about different freaking groups of people that had different schools of thought. St. Ambrose was all about that. He's like, yeah, this group does it this way. That group does it that way. They use too much water. Doesn't bother me. There were just differences of ways things happen. And women were included more in certain places even. There's just all sorts of things. Augustine says, ooh, we don't like what you're doing, particularly about St. Jerome. St. Jerome is the guy who's assembling the 73 books that are in the Bible. And everyone's freaking out. Like, they're like, this is St. Jerome. Like we only need these books, right? This is a big thing with a lot of Christians. We only need these books. They only use 66. Catholics have the 73. They've cut out a bunch of them. The 66 books that they're using, though, it's not like St. Jerome said, these are the only books. It's actually the other way around. Marcion said, let's get rid of all the books. We should just only have the New Testament letters that Paul wrote, right? And then they're like, well, don't do that. And then St. Jerome goes to the Delphi Oracle caves, right, where he's like even doing medium work and breathing, but he's also at Antioch, so he has access to these old scripts, these old scriptures, and he learns Hebrew, and he does a pretty good job because he's already fluent in Greek and I think Aramaic, but at least Greek. And so he ends up writing and translating, and yeah, I think also Latin. He ends up translating these old scriptures. And so at that point, you got the Septuagint, but he's like, no, let's look at these ancient Hebrew scripts. And they're like, this is not to be included. Like, why would we ever want the Jewish text? Like, this would be crazy. The whole thing is we have Jesus. And he's like, well, I think it would be worth it to include more than less, and so even then they're like, Augustine's like, this guy's a heretic, and he's putting out these books, and some of these books I don't agree with, And so that leads to people saying, oh, well, heretics are bad because they have their own school of thought. They're not in our school of thought, so it must be a different school of thought. And so we start to think of it as this us or them, Martin Buber kind of unanimity -1 paradox, where it's not the way it started out. And it's really weird because it's, again, we're using St. Jerome, who's not about saying this is the only, he's actually doing the opposite. He's saying we should be including as many things that we can that sound like they're coming from people that are getting divine inspiration, so that we can look through that, right? And it's I find that to be interesting about heresy.
Right, like, it makes sense to me what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, they call Jesus a heretic, right? Like, I think that's the thing that they.
Any new idea essentially becomes heresy until it reaches mass, like, adoption or mass acceptance.
Oh yeah, I also made this picture earlier. Forget everything you heard about the past. You have to unlearn what you have learned. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Very Xirtus bondish.
That bond, careful with that bondish word. Sounds real close. So is there anything, I mean, we're at the 53 minutes. We were trying to do a short one. Are we going to try to go? Is there anything else you guys wanted to cover? We did a lot about the apocalypse.
I just wanted to bring up before it's done. Kurt, were you the one that did the AI intro that I use all the time in the Real Science series, or like was that Xirtus, or who did that? I would like to give
the song.
Yeah, like the song and like the video or whatever.
Oh, who did the 1975? It's called 1975.
In that case, I did not do it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He does.
I think Brittany made a comment one time when the live stream when somebody was asking and to mention it might have been you, but
it's Bruno. It's Bruno. Yeah. Check out Bruno. Bruno E. Bruno E. is the artist, I think. And yeah, check him out. And also,
I gotta get credit because it's epic as hell,
dude. Yeah, it is pretty sweet. And then also make sure you listen to American Time Machine. Come on, internet. Why don't you let me do that? Well, I lost my cache. Let's just try that again. Spotify, search American Time Machine. Oh, here he is right here. Because it's a favorite that I listen to all the time. You can see. Spanjo. Where the Spanjo goes? Listen to that. Yeah, right? I can hear Gunwoo listening to this already. When he drinks his boba tea, he'll be like, yeah.
Without any copyright infringement, but there's samples of actually Spyro, the original, and really? Banjo-Kazooie. So that's where, if there's any familiarity there, it's like those samples are being stretched.
That's brilliant. So you're Paul stretching and Pogotroning at the same time. That's cool.
Yeah, but that was pretty much a standard for that entire group of songs. And now I'm in a stretch. I guess I'm taking a step back from the creative aspect, just to, I guess, have perspective. But there are things in life than just to constantly, churn out shit, But American Time Machine, the sponsor of all my words today, right. And American Time Machine will up your market dating value, or mark it up. It'll get it up so high that you will never ever actually have to commit to a relationship ever again. You could just hold on to that feeling indefinitely that you could always do better. So if you do not want to be in a relationship, but to feel like you could be in one, listen to American Time Machine. That also being said, with poop, if you ever want to compost your own poop, very simple, a lot of resources online. But if you had an outhouse and you had a lot of sawdust, you can put some sawdust in, put some poop down in, and then put some more sawdust in, and that will compost. Well, eventually you can have full buckets and then put that all into a compost pile. Let it go for as long as 2 years. It could even heat up. You can get a big compost thermometer. Get to 140 degrees, but that can eventually, it'll turn into something by the end of that process that smells sweet. and then
Very
you can use that.
fruitful, right? Fruitful
fertilizer.
productions.
Yes.
And right, this epic red-eye episode. And if you're gonna do manure, just make sure you don't get pink eye. Keep it red.
Yeah. And I don't want to do this for Irma right now, but at some point, let's do an episode on why the Apostle Paul was a closeted homosexual. Okay, I think we had a good show tonight. God bless you all. Take care. Good night.
Thanks for having me.
The world is very different now. For man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
Begins a very special time of the year for us. It's the time of peace and reflection. One thing we should all be thankful for is that we live in America, where we have the freedom to change things and the opportunity to grow.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. And will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help you God. So help me God.